It tipped, spilling across the pristine tablecloth. "Oh my goodness!" Linda gasped. "I'm so sorry." She grabbed napkins, mortified. "I should never have brought him. This is—" Michael stood quietly, then held out his hands. "May I?" She blinked, confused. "You want to hold him? If you'll let me?" Hesitantly, she handed Oliver over. The boy wriggled, then stilled against Michael's chest. The CEO's hand moved gently over the child's back, his voice soft. "It's all right, buddy." Linda watched in disbelief. The man holding her son looked nothing like the stern businessman she'd imagined, only warmth, patience, and quiet strength. Michael looked up. "There," he said with a faint smile. Crisis averted. Linda laughed nervously, cheeks pink. "You're a natural." "I had a fiancée once," he said softly. "We planned to start family. She passed away before we could." Her eyes softened. "I'm so sorry." He shrugged gently. "I stopped trusting myself to love again after that. But—" he looked down at Oliver, who had fallen asleep in his arms. "Maybe I was wrong." They ate slowly, their conversation unfolding like a quiet song. She told him about her small apartment, about baking cupcakes at dawn to pay rent. He told her about boardrooms, mergers, and lonely nights spent staring at city lights. Somewhere between laughter and silence, something fragile began to grow. Later, as they stepped outside under the drizzle, Michael opened the door for her. "You don't have to apologize for bringing him," he said softly. "You showed me something I didn't know I was missing." She met his eyes, kind, steady, and unbearably sincere. "Thank you," she whispered. A week later, the park shimmered under golden sunlight. Linda strolled with Oliver, his tiny hand clutching hers. His giggles carried on the breeze, until a familiar voice made her stop. "Linda?" Michael sat on a bench by the duck pond, sleeves rolled up, coffee in hand, a book resting beside him. He stood instantly when he saw her. "Hey," she said, surprised. "Hey yourself," he smiled. Oliver squealed and ran straight to him. Without hesitation, Michael scooped him up. "Hey there, buddy." Linda blinked. The ease between them stunned her. They walked together, Michael still carrying Oliver, who was tugging curiously at his shirt buttons. "He really likes you," Linda said. "I'm honored," Michael chuckled, "though I think he's planning to steal my tie." Just then, Oliver squirmed, and suddenly Michael froze. "Oh no!" He looked down. A spreading wet patch darkened his beige pants. Linda gasped, then burst into laughter. "Oh my God! Did he?" Michael sighed in mock defeat. "CEO of Wet Pants, at your service." A nearby child pointed. "Mommy, that man peed his pants." Linda couldn't stop laughing. "I'm so sorry." Michael grinned, wiping his sleeve with a napkin. "If this is fatherhood, I think I'm all in." They sat beneath a tree, while Oliver played in the grass. Linda's laughter faded into quiet warmth. "You look like a real dad with him," she said softly. Michael didn't reply immediately. Then, "Sometimes I wish I were." Their eyes met, unguarded, honest. The wind brushed her hair across her face, and he reached out to tuck a strand behind her ear. His touch lingered. "I didn't mean to," she began. He shook his head. "It's okay. It's true." They sat watching Oliver chase butterflies, and for the first time in years, both felt completely at peace. The fall. Days passed. They met again, then again. Laughter over coffee. Quiet walks. The space between them shrank until she could no longer deny what her heart already knew. Then one afternoon at the bakery, Linda heard Marissa's voice, sharp and cruel. "So she thinks she can trap a CEO with a baby?" Linda froze mid-frosting. Marissa laughed. "What man wants to raise someone else's kid?" "Don't talk about my son," Linda said quietly. Marissa smirked. "You're a single mom at a bakery. Linda, he's a Blake. You're not in his league." Their manager stepped in. "Enough, both of you." Linda stared, hurt. "You're not going to say anything?" "Just let it go," he said flatly. That night, she sat by her window, Oliver asleep beside her. City lights flickered outside. Her chest ached with doubt. What if Marissa was right? What if she was chasing something impossible? She typed and deleted message after message to Michael. Maybe we should slow down. Maybe you deserve someone else. But she couldn't send it. 3 days later, Michael showed up, not at her apartment, but at the bakery. Is Linda here? He asked. She quit, the manager said. Michael's jaw tightened. Why? She had a disagreement. A young coworker muttered. Someone said mean things. She just walked out. Michael left immediately. When Linda opened the door, she looked exhausted, eyes red from lack of sleep. Michael, she breathed. I heard what happened, he said gently. You shouldn't have come. I wanted to. He smiled softly. Oliver wouldn't let me stay away anyway. At the sound of his voice, Oliver squealed. Mike! Michael laughed, scooping him up. There's my guy. Silence settled between them, thick with emotion. I didn't want to drag you into my mess, Linda whispered. You're not dragging me, he said quietly. I walked in willingly. Her voice trembled. I'm scared that you'll regret this. He glanced at her, then at Oliver. If I'm scared, let it be for you. For him. That's what love means, doesn't it? Her breath caught. She nodded. I missed you. I missed us, he said, and the storm in her chest finally quieted. The weeks that followed unfolded like a dream Linda was afraid to wake from. Michael became part of their tiny world. Unannounced visits to the bakery, weekend breakfast at the park, bedtime stories read in his deep, soothing voice while Oliver fought sleep just to listen a little longer. For the first time, Linda didn't feel like she was merely surviving. She was living, but the world around them didn't stay quiet for long. The photograph. One crisp morning, a sleek black car stopped outside the bakery. A tall woman in designer heels stepped out, Victoria Blake, Michael's older sister and business partner. Her expression was icy. You're Linda, right? Linda wiped her hands nervously. Yes. Can I help you? Victoria's eyes flicked over her apron, the flour on her cheeks. You already have. My brother hasn't stopped talking about you. But I need to make one thing clear. He doesn't belong here. Linda stiffened. Excuse me? He's under pressure from the board, from investors. He's preparing for an international merger worth billions. The tabloids already have photos of him with you and your child. She pulled out her phone, showing a headline. Blake Ayre's secret family? Mystery woman and child spotted with CEO. Linda's stomach dropped. Victoria's voice softened, but her words cut sharper. You seem kind, but this will ruin him. Walk away before he has to choose. When Michael arrived that evening, Linda stood at the door with tears in her eyes. We can't do this, she whispered. He frowned. What happened? She showed him the photo. Michael's jaw clenched. Victoria. She's right, Linda said, her voice breaking. You have a life, a company. This will destroy you. Michael shook his head. Linda, I don't care what they say. You should, she cried. You've worked too hard for this. I won't be the reason you lose everything. Before he could answer, she closed the door softly and sank to the floor, clutching Oliver's stuffed rabbit. The silence. Days turned to weeks. Michael called, texted, left flowers by her door. Linda couldn't bring herself to answer. Oliver asked for him every night until finally, even he stopped asking. But one evening, as she was locking up the bakery, she saw him outside, standing in the rain, soaked through, his suit clinging to him. Michael, she gasped, running to open the door. He smiled faintly, eyes tired but full of warmth. You can ignore my calls, but I draw the line at pneumonia. Get inside, she said, pulling him in. He didn't move, just looked at her with quiet intensity. I don't care about headlines. Linda, I don't care what they say. I care about you and that little boy who makes me laugh harder than I have in years. Her voice trembled. You can't fight everyone. Then I'll fight alone. She shook her head. You'll lose. Michael stepped closer. Then let me lose with you. Something inside her broke. Tears spilled as she whispered, Why are you doing this? Because love doesn't ask for convenience, he said simply. Before she could answer, Oliver toddled out of the back room, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? When he saw Michael, his face lit up. Mike! Michael knelt, arms open. The child ran into them without hesitation. Linda covered her mouth, sobbing softly. That night, for the first time in months, their small apartment was filled with laughter again. The boardroom. 2 weeks later, Michael walked into the board meeting at Blake Enterprises. The long oak table gleamed under fluorescent lights. His sister sat at the head, eyes sharp as glass. "Michael, the photos have become a distraction," she said coolly. "Our investors are nervous. They think this relationship could damage our credibility." He looked around the room, men and women in tailored suits who judged him not for his work, but for who he chose to love. "Credibility," he said quietly. "You mean image. Image is credibility," Victoria snapped. He stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. "Then let me give you a new one." He placed a folder on the table, financial statements, contracts, and a signed resignation letter. "Michael, what is this?" "My resignation. I built this company to mean something, not to hide behind a logo. If love cost me my title, so be it." The room went silent. He turned and walked out, not once looking back. The wedding, a year later, under a canopy of twinkling lights in the same restaurant where they first met. Linda stood in a simple ivory gown, her hands trembling as she held a small bouquet. Oliver stood beside her in a tiny suit, proudly carrying the rings. The guests rose as Michael entered, not in a CEO's suit, but in a simple gray tuxedo, eyes only for her. When he reached her, he whispered, "Still sorry for bringing your baby?" She laughed through tears. "Never again." As the vows began, the rain started, soft, gentle, almost poetic. Michael pulled her close, shielding her with his jacket. "I once thought love was something you earned," he said quietly. "You showed me it's something you share. And you showed me it's okay to dream again," she replied. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Oliver clapped loudly. "Mommy and Mike." Everyone laughed. Michael lifted him onto his shoulders. "Our boy," he said proudly. Linda smiled, tears glistening in the rain. "Our family." Epilogue. 3 years later. The bakery had grown into a small cafe called Oliver's Corner, with pictures of cupcakes and a smiling little boy painted on the window. Linda worked the counter, her wedding ring catching the sunlight as she handed a cupcake to a customer. A familiar voice called from behind her, "You missed a spot, Mrs. Blake." She turned to see Michael, holding their newborn daughter, Emma, in his arms. Oliver ran up, flour on his cheeks. "Daddy, Mommy said I can frost a day." Michael laughed. "Then the business is officially in good hands." Linda leaned over the counter and kissed him. "You know," she teased, "for a man who once ran a billion-dollar company, you make a pretty good assistant." He grinned. "Best job I've ever had." As laughter and the scent of cinnamon filled the air, Linda looked around, at her husband, her children, and the life she never thought she'd have. Love hadn't made her story perfect. It had made it real, and that was more than enough.